Hey everybody, it's tafony here once again. I hope you're having a wonderful new year. Today I am going to be rambling about the Qubit Electronics Bloom. It is a 16 HP, what they describe as fractal sequencer. It's 2 channels, it's 32 steps for each. It is focused on branching, on evolution, on generative stuff, and we'll get into all of that shortly, but some of the quick housekeeping to get out of the way first. I'm not affiliated with Qubit. This isn't a demo video. This isn't sponsored. This isn't assessment or demonstration. This is just my video blog of sorts. It's a journeys in hardware, music, equipment, and stuff like that. So I'm not going to try and get super in-depth. I'm just here to share my thoughts, my experiences, my ramblings with you, and more importantly than all of that, it sounds like this. Using the IntelliGel palette today with the Plasma voice beside it, I thought this might be the, using a full synth voice would help make things really simple, straightforward on the, just so we can try and talk more about the sequencing and less about the synth patch, but opening it up now. It also, has a big flashing light that help us see what our sequence is like. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go from the panel top to bottom. Basically, first I'm going to say the channel button. So indicated by the blue light above output 1, we have our blue channel and then a green channel. Out of the box, it seems like there's a different clock division for these. Like the green channel is moving slower and the blue is moving faster, which, out of the box, we can adjust all of this, but makes it easy to run baseline on one channel and then a lead pad slower, more, something on the other channel. But for this video, we'll probably just stick to doing a baseline because, the other 2 channels are the same. So we're shaking the camera, we're talking with our hands, we're doing it all. So that was the channel select. There is a manual reset, which is interesting. If you get too crazy and branched out, I believe this will actually reset it all back to the beginning. So yeah, keep that in mind. Interesting to see. In this current patch, all it's going to do is just bring it back up to the beginning, and I don't think I've actually changed any of the note inputs, so it's not going to change too much other than goes up an octave the second time around. 2, 3, 4. So yeah, the layout on the left side, I'm going to go through these. First here, this is sort of your sequencer steps as indicated by the LED, and then these encoders are 2-function in the way that they have shift functions that are sort of settings for the whole channel, but they themselves are the enable disable buttons for the specific steps. So if I take some steps out, and bring them back in, just to give you an idea of that, this is kind of the most core workflow. And then these clicky encoders will change the pitch. So if I noodle with them a little bit, that's what that sounds like. And if I remember correctly, the branching won't enable and disable steps, but let's find out if that's actually true or not. So those are the sort of dual function step encoders that also have, options here for like the length, sorry, it's going to be hard for y'all to see, the scale, the order, the pattern, the div multiplication, the slew, the ratchets, the notes, all of that. But then the other dedicated encoders on the right side here, we have our root here. So again, now that I'm twisting this encoder, you see the lights are jumping around on the same step lane. And we've gone up an octave here, so let's just go way back down. Yeah. That's our root, which is kind of interesting. You would think if I was making this thing, I would have swapped the root option for the scale option, but then, because I probably would want to do that more, but then there is a CV input here, so maybe you want to send modulation for your octave more than you might want to for the scale, which also makes sense. So, but anyway, they did it the way they did it, and it is here. So the root, I'm gonna keep it pretty low because I did mostly raising of the octaves in my steps themselves. So let's enable all the steps again, just for fun. And then path. So they describe it as sets the direction followed by the fractal sequence. So the number of paths is determined by the branch parameter. So if we increase this, sorry, I gotta consult the manual today a fair bit, and I think a lot of the qubit electronic stuff that people don't like is, again, path. What does path mean? Well, you need to consult the manual, the visualization they have created here for it. So the Bloom visual model, so generative modifications, transposition, inversion, reversal. So their description there, the branches, as I increase the amount of branches, it's going to allow it to drift more from the initial sequence. And as I increase the mutation, you can think of like our base sequence as the trunk, and then the branches and the paths and the mutations all as just like different branches of the tree, right? So if I have increased the amount of branches, maybe I'll just bring it up to half now, and same for maybe just for a demonstration's sake, we'll put the mutation up to half as well. If we increase our pathing, our paths parameter, I guess a little more random. Now I want to speed this up a little bit just so it evolves quicker. And the colors will show you where it's branched as well. So we're pretty basic there, but then you get into the, purple stuff in the other ones. They're gonna show, see, I'm getting the yellow ones. And yeah, the thing about generative sequence is like the patch is going to make it. If I just show you kind of like random arpeggio here, it's not super interesting, but I do want to go over sort of the workflow that is in these encoders here. So we have our scale. If you hold shift, this will quantize everything into the different scales. So let me see again. Some of the issues with or to be honest, the headaches with the qubit stuff sometimes, and some stuff like the data bender, it is totally worth it, but other stuff it can be a headache on, and let's see how it is here because I haven't made up my mind on that yet, but you got to go to the manual to tell what the scales are. So first one, chromatic, locks it into the Western scale, that's fine. Second one, major, minor, and then major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, harmonic minor, whole note, and unquantized. And you definitely don't want unquantized, and you definitely do want major or minor, in my opinion, because when you get into crazy branching and generative stuff, like, you always want that to be locked into one scale. So I'm going to raise up my root there so that the root octave is a little quicker. The other thing here with, like, I like how it generates bass lines in that way. I like how they're evolving. And I also sort of, as a random anecdote here, it's kind of like so we went through the scale one first instead of the length, because I wanted to say that sort of like it can go up to 32 steps, but like I don't know where I would want 32 steps for this, because the idea, I want it to be more generative, right? Like I don't want a second bar of the same thing, or I don't want my generative stuff to come through again a second time. So for me, yes, you can change your length. You can get it down to 1 step, which I actually find more useful than extending it all the way to 32. And 32 is done by, if you hold it and keep scrolling, you see we're like going through pages here. I find the less is more here, because you just want it to be generative. So I've gone down to 1 step here, and now we're just totally random. Every single time we've initiated a different branch, a different path, basically, right? We're making it happen. Maybe I'll bring it up to 2, because it moves a lot, and I like that, right? 4, right? Bring my rate down and my time up. This is probably more. When I think generative, this is sort of the things that I might be hearing more. It won't be like bass lines, but let's bring our octave down a little bit. I love the plasma voice. Maybe we'll try lead. In truth, maybe some of what I said before about simplifying the synth side of things was because I knew I'd get distracted by the plasma voice, but we have something fun and generative, and it was really easy to pick up there. Now, let's go through the other shift options here. There's order, and I couldn't tell you what the options are here. Hold on. You know what? So we have, let's hold it. Let's do order, just so we can show the people. First is forward, then backward, pendulum, and random. Random. Let's do random. We just get this thing as generative as we can. Turn it up a bit. So yeah, that was our order. I'm going to bring it back to forward just for simplicity, but that's how it is. It's actually cool. You see here there's a different set of LEDs to the right of the subsequencing. So nice little trick, that one spot out of the 10,000 that you don't need the manual for, but you can see it's forward because it's animating down. You can see here it's reverse because it's animating up. Pendulum because it's going back and forth, and then random because it's pretty random, but I'll do forward just for simplicity right now. Pattern, let's go pattern. So you can actually store things into memory. Again, this is a button combo that I would never remember on the fly, and again, button combo's bad, screen good, and qubit, bloom, again, Screen would be helpful. But pattern, Bloom can store 8 patterns in memory. I don't know. For me, if I'm using something like this, I probably want to come in and just make it fresh every time. But you can, by holding Shift and rotating the encoder, you can select a slot. And then to load, hold Shift and click. So we loaded one there, and then if you want to save, you hold it down for 3 seconds and it'll blink, and we saved one. So I wouldn't use that personally, but it is there if you make something you really like and you want to save it. However, I would never remember that button combo. So actually, you know what, in saying that, it wasn't that crazy, but it is there. Now div mult, again, before I was talking about the default for that one out of the box, they had the first channel moving a little faster and the other one moving a little slower. So cool to see, because you can sort of, have one voice doing your leads and one voice doing your melody. So generative stuff is your jam, and this is going to control 2 voices, then Bob's your uncle. Okay, that's div mult. We did pattern. Now we did ratchets. You want ratchets? Again, feels a little bit more. Okay, hold on. No, that was div mult. Sorry. Let's get into ratchets. This is ratchets. Ratchets. I skipped slew too. Maybe let's go to slew. They call it slew, like portamento, right? So if you want that, I don't know if I'd want that for me, but it is there if you want it to evolve. So let's speed this up and just hear how that sounds. Actually, you know what? A little bit is nice. It adds a little bit of motion, Motion's always good. But yeah. I'll just for simplicity turn it all the way off, and we'll add some ratchets. Ratchets. What does it say about ratchets? Because I'm not hearing anything. Ratchets define the number of clocks that the sequence will remain on the selected step. Oh, so we're sticking to... Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I wish there was CV control over that. So how many times does it repeat the step, right? Okay. It's not how I expected that to work. I don't know what I was expecting, but okay. Yeah, I mean, I want my stuff to move, but you could, again, think about how you want your things to branch, right? You could do a 1-step sequence that ratchets 4 times and then changes every time, which is cool. So you hit one note, 4 quarter notes, and then move on to the next thing. And you know what, for fun, because this video needs something to say, let's do that. So 4 ratchets, our length will go down to a single step, and then we're gonna increase our path, our branches, our branch, our mutation. So now you're gonna hear new note every time, but ratchet is gonna repeat it 4 times. Let's bring our clock up. We're getting a little out of the territory of the plasma voice, at least in this patch. Interesting. Interesting. So the last one is notes. If we hit this, we can do per step editing of notes again, which this is just kind of like an exit button, I guess. So this gets us back to where we were originally, I suppose. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so back to the beginning. Same thing as before, right? Okay. Again, my sequence is super short, so maybe we'll make something a lot less complicated. Let's do 4. Let's get rid of our branches, our mutations, our craziness. take away our ratchets. And then now back to our note mode. Okay, so it's at the bottom because it's basically just like getting back to our starting spot. Okay. Oh, you can mute too. Interesting. Okay. Cool. And yeah, I mean, that's basically all there is to say about Qubit Bloom. I think some of the things I enjoy about it are like its simplicity, if that makes sense, because it like okay, so if I can just sort of acknowledge for a moment the things that were said online about this thing. Lots of people don't like how the branches perform, don't like how some of the randomness happens, don't like how things are the little control they have over the chaos because they want more control over the chaos. And there is an alternative firmware that's available that sort of makes things more tweakable to the community's liking. And for me, that is like a level of depth that I don't want to the randomness here. Now, I almost wonder if for me, like a random noise or a random LFO, sometimes, I mean in the same thing in this case, but like doing that into a quantizer might be everything I would want out of Bloom. So to see people that like they bought Bloom were not happy with the software side of it and made tweaks to it, that is a really cool thing. If that is what you seek in Bloom, is like some control, well, lots of control over deep randomness, deep branching, deep pathing, then check that out. Let me see what that's called. Blossom. So alternative firmware that adds a bunch of different things. Crazy. It's like I think one of the actual big things that they do like is they've changed how some of the step input it'll let you preview it more rather than waiting for it to come around. Anyway, there's lots of different things on there. I'll leave a link in the description to the Blossom firmware, updated at your own risk and all that. But I like the onboard firmware for its simplicity. Like, it's a 2-channel arpeggiator in a way. It has CV control over a lot of these things if you want to do some performative stuff, because it's fun to choose the mutations, and I think I'm going to try and demo a quick one of that right now. So I'm just going to do path, and we'll send it an LFO. LFO is maybe not the right thing. I'm gonna send a positive voltage, so the pathing is going to start to increase. And just how you are able to send chaos down the line. I wish I had a joystick in this case right now, but that's a fun way to be like, okay, I have a baseline sequence, it's really standard, it's straightforward, but then as a performance tool, I take my joystick and boom, I've branched out my base of my baseline into something completely different. That is kind of what Bloom is, what it does. If you have thoughts on the alternative firmware, or more importantly the base firmware, what you like about it, you don't like about it, some of the things I don't like about it is like not labeling of everything, the Qubit-isms of like everything requires a manual, and then, you know, it's muscle memory, but then if you don't use it for a bit, like I'm looking down the barrel of my Nebula V2 that I haven't used in a little while, and I, you know, have completely forgotten all of the key combos for it, so that sort of stuff can be annoying, but, you know, Bloom is one of the more straightforward Qubit modules, I'd say, and I really like it as a 2-channel arpeggiator of sorts. If you're into generative stuff, I think it's really great. I mean, some alternatives might be like the Rene Mark II, which I really did not like. There is stuff like, I think the Atlantics or the Atlantis is a 1-channel version. They can be pretty generative too. But yeah, if you're into randomness, Bloom, yeah, I'm hard pressed to say, like, actually, you know what could be similar is like using PAMs as random source as well, like a lot less depth and control, but a lot less size and a lot of other utilities on board. So, but I hopefully gave you some insight on, you know, how the workflow is and how this panel is laid out if it's something that interests you. Some people really don't mesh with it and it comes up really cheap. So if it does mesh for you and it comes up really cheap, it might be a good call. I don't know. Again, I'm not here to push it. So if you think this looks silly, looks dumb, like punching my camera is, then yeah. That is the Qubit Bloom. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for watching again. I'm Tafony, and I'll talk to you soon.